Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Remy sent me a great story from mlive.com. Not sure how I missed this because mlive is a place that gathers stories from around the state of Michigan. But Michigan, the state, Michigan, is scrapping old laws banning cursing in front of women and other archaic things. And we've talked about this before. They pass a law, they put it in the law books, the blue books behind me, and then sometimes they just leave them there long after times have changed. And you discover that, hey, it's illegal to curse over the telegraph or something. So Jonathan Oosting wrote the article. Remy passed it to me, thank you very much. And again, this is coming to us from Lansing, Michigan, the capital. Michigan Governor Rick Snyder on Tuesday signed a package of bills. So these are now the law. But the bills repeal a series of outdated and basically unenforceable laws, including a prohibition against cursing in front of women or children. And that one is actually scarier than you think, because they actually said in Michigan, if you cursed in front of a woman, it was illegal. Cursing in front of a man, not so much. And you might say, Steve, that's cool. Chivalry is not dead. But stupidity isn't either. And this actually came to a head because I know this because there was an article widely publicized in, I believe, the mid-90s, where a man had gone canoeing with some of his friends, not me, but a guy, and he was having a good old time, screaming, yelling, and apparently, occasionally, obscenities would be part of what he's screaming and yelling. And a woman actually went and complained to the constabulary, I assume that's what they called it back then, and the police picked this guy up and said, were you swearing out on the river? And the guy just thought that was a trick question, because who wasn't? You're out on a river in a canoe in the middle of nowhere drinking. What else are you doing besides swearing? And the guy said, sure, probably, And they arrested him and charged him with this crime that was still in the books, swearing in front of a woman or child. And it wound its way through the courts. And at one point in time, I wrote a letter to the editor of either the Detroit News or the Free Press, I'm not sure which, because they'd done a story on this. And they published my letter. And if I had more time and a little bit more inclination, I could dig it out for you, because I actually know where I have a collection of all the things. Old man shakes fist at cloud. I've got clippings of all of the things I've complained about in my life. And I actually had at one point in time a copy of that letter to the editor where I basically said, this is absurd that such a law is still in the books. It's even more absurd they're enforcing it. Well, the good news is, as of now, they couldn't do this. So gone from the books are criminal statutes that had banned people from embellishing the national anthem or hosting walkathons. I'm not quite sure why that was on there, unless it was like an anti-gambling statute or something. And of course, the embellishing the national anthem. And again, I'm showing you my age because I was alive, although this is way when I was younger. The Detroit Tigers won the World Series in 1968, and famously, Jose Feliciano did the national anthem. And by did, I mean that's the proper verb, because he didn't really perform it in any way that most people liked. He did a very jazzy version of the national anthem. And if you haven't heard of it, just remember what he did to Light My Fire by the Doors, and you'll understand what he did to the national anthem. So I don't know if that law was passed before or after what Jose Feliciano did to the national anthem, but gone from the books, again, criminal statutes that banned people from embellishing the national anthem, hosting walkathons, or other things. Snyder said in a comment, modernizing state government is an ongoing effort. I appreciate the work of the legislature in analyzing the criminal code and eliminating statutes that no longer make sense in the 21st century, which is where we're living right now. So among the laws that Michigan is scrapping is cursing in front of women or children. The Michigan Penal Code had made it a misdemeanor to use indecent, immoral, obscene, vulgar, or insulting language in the presence or hearing of a woman or child. Think about how absurd that is. I could not insult you in front of a child. That's a crime, or at least it was until this law got repealed. It's absurd. Embellishing the national anthem. The Penal Code had prohibited the performance of the Star-Spangled Banner in a public venue except as an entire and separate composition or number and without embellishments or other melodies. Now, The question, if you interpreted the national anthem as you might if you are Jose Feliciano, is whether or not that's embellishment or just butchering it might be legal. I don't know. The penal code also prohibited any part of the song from being played as part of a medley. Okay? Greatest hits. Violations were a misdemeanor crime. It was illegal to trespass in a huckleberry marsh. Now, I did not know that huckleberries are real things. I mean, I'm joking, but you know. But apparently they grow them in marshes. And, most people only think of huckleberry as the first name of a hound named Huckleberry Hound. But House Bill 4249 repeals the older laws regarding specific places of trespassing, such as huckleberry or blackberry marshes, which are now covered by the state's general trespass and larceny laws. So obviously there's a time when some guy had a huckleberry marsh and somebody's coming in there at night and stealing his huckleberries. And so he said, can I get a law to protect me and my huckleberry marsh? And they said, sure, and they passed a law. When, of course, you can simply have a law that says you can't trespass on someone's property. If you steal something there, it's another crime. So these specific laws outlawing huckleberry or blackberry marsh trespassing have been repealed. Hosting a walkathon. This is one I really did not know existed because obviously walkathons have been around for however long people have been walking for a cause. House Bill 4250 repeals the law making it illegal to promote, conduct, or participate in an endurance contest such as a walkathon. So I guess that's the key. And again, you have to go back to a bygone era. They used to have dance contests, dance marathons, and walking contests. And I've seen some articles recently, including books, I believe, written on this. There was a craze in America where people would go walk around a track for days and days and days to see who could walk the farthest in like 24 hours or 48 hours or 72 hours. And I think at some point in time, people got scared that was unhealthy, might hurt somebody. So they passed a law outlawing that, and you couldn't promote them, conduct them, or participate in them as endurance contests. But the way they defined it would probably encompass things like a walkathon. Most people who go to a walkathon aren't walking that hard or that fast or that far, but they're going to go walk 5 miles for a good cause. So they've gotten rid of those. House Bill 4709 removes outdated language prohibiting a doctor or other person. Why not just prohibiting people? No, a doctor or other person from putting a deformed human being or human monstrosity on display or in an exhibition. The state has adopted more contemporary language prohibiting the public display of a disabled or disfigured individual. Lost manhood language. The code had contained some restrictions on print advertisements related to certain diseases. It was a misdemeanor, punishable by up to a year in prison or a $1,000 fine to use phrases like lost manhood or lost vitality and vigor. You got to think back when America was very, very prudish in what they'd allow in advertising. And if you ever go through old newspapers or old magazines, especially before the turn of the century, I'm talking about the 1800s, you'd often see these ads for, this elixir will give you vim and vigor. And those were code words. Okay? That meant something to the guys, to the gentleman in the audience, or to the lady who perhaps wants to help her man enhance his vim or vigor. Vim and vigor being a different thing. Able-bodied firefighting. Under one repealed law, any able-bodied male over the age of 18 could have been required to assist the Department of Natural Resources in an emergency, such as a forest fire. Refusing without reasonable justification had been a misdemeanor. So there's a fire going on down at the end of the street. And state firefighters, officials, are rushing down there, and they're forming like a posse of people. Please, we need help, we need help. And they look at you and they go, hey, you, dude, you look able-bodied. Come join us. And you go, not today. Sorry, fellas. They could call the police on you and have you arrested because that was a crime. But no more. Now you're free to let them go fight that fire on their own. So the outdated laws were targeted for repeal by a legislative work group chaired by Republican reps Chris Affendoulis of Grand Rapids Township and Kurt Heiss of Plymouth Township. The various measures passed both chambers with broad and bipartisan support and thence were signed into law or out of law, depending on how you want to take a look at that, by Governor Rick Snyder on Tuesday this week. So it's good to see these things being eradicated from our books. And the sad part is that there are a bunch of other crazy laws repealed as well. Most of them so irrelevant that people have long since forgotten about them. But like I said, the one about cursing in front of women strikes a memory for me because, like I said, there was a case while I was an attorney. I didn't handle it, but I just became aware of it. I wrote a letter to the editor of one of the local newspapers, and they published my letter where I basically said, look, you can't have a law like this, to say it's illegal in front of a woman but not in front of a man. It causes all kinds of problems with equal protection and so on. But also, it gets back to just a free speech issue. And then the question, of course, is, would this speech be allowable in front of anybody, man, woman, or otherwise? So, it's trying to be updated here, my friends. So there you go. The laws that were archaic have been repealed, and that's a good thing. And Remy passed me the story, so thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that, from mlive.com. Questions or comments, please put them below. Otherwise, talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching Lehto's Law. And no, I'm not a robot.